Its names are many, from the Golden Perfect to the Lasso of Hestia, but its purpose is singular. It compels those within its bonds to tell the truth. Where did this fabulous rope come from? Well, we're here to divine the truth of Wonder Woman's lasso. The lasso began as part of the goddess Aphrodite's magical girdle, an item bestowed upon the Amazons that granted them strength and immortality. Queen Hippolyta, intrigued by its properties, instructed her craftswoman, Matala, to forge a golden rope from it. Matala did so, creating the very first iteration of Wonder Woman's wonderful lasso. It was a finely wrought golden chain that didn't, in fact, compel its subject to tell the truth, but to obey. It was unbreakable, magically elastic, capable of binding groups of people, and, once coated in chemicals of Amazonian design, was able to transform Diana's civilian clothes into her Wonder Woman costume. Then, DC's landmark event, Crisis on Infinite Earths, took place. Wonder Woman's lasso was left relatively unchanged, save for two major alterations. It now compelled the truth rather than obedience, and it was no longer an Amazonian design. This post-crisis lasso was instead forged by Hephaestus, god of metallurgy himself, from the golden girdle of Gaia, tempered in the fires of Hestia. But that wasn't the end of the lasso's changes, as the new 52 reboot of the DC Universe changed the legendary tool still further. Nowadays, the lasso is known to the Amazons as the Golden Perfect, a gift from the gods passed down through the generations. It's a symbol of sacred trust, that of the Amazons and the gods in the Amazons. Only an Amazon of purest heart can wield it, making Diana a perfect candidate. Generally speaking, the lasso's powers seem fairly straightforward. Wonder Woman wraps a bad guy in it, bad guy has to tell the truth about his evil scheme, and the heroes rush off to stop it with their newfound knowledge. But truth is a slippery slope, and Wonder Woman's deeply held sense of compassion will never allow her to settle for convenience when there's honesty to be had. Luckily, the lasso's powers are flexible enough to account for this. Under the umbrella of truth, the lasso can do everything from dispelling illusions induced by hallucinatory gas to allowing people to communicate openly beyond a stubborn language barrier. In the recent Year One storyline, a neophyte Wonder Woman, dazzled by the delights and depredations of man's world, used the lasso, then still new to her, to accomplish both of these feats. When she, Etta Candy, Steve Trevor, and Dr. Barbara Ann Minerva all held the lasso at once, they were able to communicate despite Diana's inability to then speak English. Soon after, an insanity-inducing poison turned a squad of helpless men into manic murderers. With the lasso, Diana was able to dispel the poison's effects immediately and discern the men's innocence. Truth might need to be delivered as a magical antidote or immersive immediate language course, but the lasso will always be able to fit the bill. Despite its amazing powers, Wonder Woman's lasso is, in fact, a simple lasso. Sure, it's an unbreakable one that can stretch, shrink, and form complicated nets and snares, but it's a rope with a loop tied to it. Wonder Woman uses it often in this manner, throwing it to catch mid-air villains and rampaging animals alike. Or when a disaster comes along, the lasso is useful for towing unlucky victims to high ground, the shore, or beyond a fire's reach. In the Golden and Silver Ages, however, Wonder Woman explored the lasso's physical properties to the furthest extent. As the character wasn't originally capable of flight, she could twirl the lasso furiously enough to create air currents she could float on. Wonder Woman was practically a cowgirl during this era, so skillfully did she wield her magical chain. Gal Gadot might be able to unleash devastating shockwaves from her bracelets, but we'd like to see her give someone a serious earache with a particularly fierce twirl of the lasso. Confronting foes with upsetting truths has its uses. More than once, Diana has used the lasso's powers to force those within its bonds to face a secret that motivates them to do ill or to face consequences they'd prefer to ignore. In 2008's Wonder Woman number 15, Diana confronted Captain Nazi, an old foe looking to bring the Third Reich back to life. Seeking to learn of his plan to invade Themyscira, Diana wrapped him in the lasso and discovered his past as well. Facing his abusive childhood brought him to tears, which had the dual effect of stopping his assault and forcing him to lose faith in his campaign. Similarly, during George Perez's run on Wonder Woman, Diana stopped and emboldened Ares at the point when all seemed lost. In the lasso's coils, he saw the result of his quest to cover the Earth in conflict and bloodshed. A barren rock, void of followers, and thus void of the discord that fueled him. The abject loneliness of this vision didn't just compel him to retreat, but it actually wrenched tears from his eyes. In the end, it wasn't violence that stopped either of these terrible villains, but the truth that was lurking within their own hearts. Unfortunately, not all who seek Wonder Woman's destruction can be constrained by the lasso. Genocide, a villain envisioned by Wonder Woman writer Gail Simone as being the heroine's antithesis, actually used the lasso to further her own depraved aims. A superpowered juggernaut created from both Diana's corpse, retrieved from the future, and soil from the sites of 20th century killing fields, Genocide was a ruthless golem of murderous intent, used to further the aims of Ares, the Cheetah, and other members of Wonder Woman's rogues gallery. In her first assault upon the Amazon, Genocide was actually able to steal the lasso and take it back to her terrible masters, who surgically implanted it within Genocide's body. Twisted into serving horrible aims, the lasso imbued Genocide with incredible power. Suddenly, she could overthrow the will of Green Lantern Corps members, manipulate those around her into disabling despair, and exude a general aura of rage and hopelessness. All reason and rationality could be overthrown in one terrible flood of psychic energy from the lasso that Genocide had buried in her own flesh. Though Diana was able to retrieve it and Genocide was scattered to the winds, the memory of what the lasso was capable of when put to evil ends was not so easily forgotten. Being an object and not a power she herself is imbued with, Wonder Woman can use the lasso upon herself. Rarely does she need to employ this ability. She makes a point of being honest with herself and others from the get-go. But it's come in handy more often than you might think. Usually, this comes in the form of Diana wrapping herself in it to prove she speaks truthfully. Sometimes it's a private practice meant to reconnect the heroine to her roots and her mission. But occasionally, she needs the lasso in a moment of extreme crisis, and those are often the most spectacular uses of all. During 2016's Year One storyline, Wonder Woman was exposed to a fear and rage-inducing gas. Plunged into a mindless fury, she promised to anoint the men of this new world with the blood they seemed to crave. But clarity managed to shine through, and she managed to grab hold of her lasso and wrap it around her own body, head to toe, as tightly as possible. Her mind cleared of anger and despair, and she dispersed her own insanity in a dazzling blaze of power, crying out, "This is not true!" The day was saved, the villains were caught, and Wonder Woman, fresh from Themyscira's shores, had discovered just how much of a difference she and her wonderful lasso could make in this strange new world. Just as Wonder Woman has her lasso, the girls who've taken on the mantle of Wonder Girl must have lassos of their own. But they don't have lassos of truth. Instead, they have lassos of very different powers, suited for very different heroines. Donna Troy, a Wonder Girl of many divergent origin stories, wields a silver-blue lasso with as much dexterity as the heroine she takes her name from. In 2010's Justice League of America number 44, she named it the Lasso of Persuasion, as she told the demon Etrigan bound within it, "Anyone whose will is less than hers has to do what she tells them, and her will is iron." Cassie Sandsmark, the second Wonder Girl, wields a very different lasso, the Lasso of Lightning. This lasso is uniquely connected to her as a daughter of Zeus, channeling her godly father's legendary lightning through its unbreakable bonds. Moreover, as was revealed when the witch Circe had the Lasso of Lightning under her control in 2006's Wonder Woman number 4, it's also capable of inducing rage. Whether it's truth, persuasion, or lightning, the lassos of the DC Universe are not to be trifled with. If there's one thing you know about Wonder Woman's creator, William Moulton Marston, it's probably that he invented the lie detector. But this nugget of common knowledge isn't precisely true. Marston created the systolic blood pressure test, not the polygraph itself, and he never accomplished his goal of introducing it to the court system. He still managed to make good on his contribution, appeared in a series of Gillette advertisements, and he got many of his ideas to the public through the comics he'd become best known for. But the common understanding of Marston's invention having something to do with Wonder Woman's Lasso of Truth is solidly wrong, especially since his rendition of the lasso compelled obedience instead of truth-telling. In fact, Marston saw Wonder Woman's lasso as symbolizing something very different, the natural allure he believed all women possessed that the world would do well to heed. As detailed in Jill Lepore's landmark book, The Secret History of Wonder Woman, Marston saw the Amazons as ruling through natural charm, grace, wisdom, and strength. The lasso merely got people to accept them as rightful leaders a little more quickly than they would have otherwise.
Marston is really endlessly fascinating. There's some kind of almost not an effort in American culture that he doesn't have a hand in the first half of the 20th century.
Truth was important, sure, but accepting Amazonian guidance was the real path to a just and peaceful world. That's a little harder to turn into a soundbite than, the man who invented the lie detector also invented the lasso of truth. The lasso of truth is, crucially, unbreakable. What good would it be otherwise? In a world of razor-sharp batarangs and beings of godlike strength, Wonder Woman can't go around having it snapped by any old bad guy in a superpowered exoskeleton. No, as befitting a tool forged by the gods, the lasso is unbreakable. Though it's always climactic and heralds an enormous change of stakes, the lasso has, in fact, been broken before. Sometimes it's the result of having its connection to truth weakened on the conceptual level. Bizarro, representing the reversal of all things, was able to break it in 2003's Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman Trinity series. But in 2003's Superman, Red Sun, Wonder Woman broke it herself in a desperate attempt to save Superman. Occasionally, it's broken through Diana's own weakness. For example, her dismay at learning a truth she couldn't handle in 1997's JLA number 62 ripped the lasso apart through the sheer force of the quandary at hand. Naturally, it's always returned to wholeness. But the lasso, as its mistress, is not invulnerable, which provides readers with a wealth of stories. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite superheroes are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.